I think that's very important. The other benefit to those MYGAs or fixed rate annuities, whatever you want to refer to them as, is that they can offer a pretty competitive guaranteed rate, oftentimes higher than the highest bank CDs on the market.
Yeah.
In addition to that, one of the benefits of that MYGA or multi-year guaranteed annuity is that not only can you get a very competitive fixed rate for an agreed amount of time, but during that time the money's in that account, it's going to grow tax deferred. So if you're using non-qualified money, general savings, you can put money into this vehicle and it can grow tax deferred. Whereas with a bank CD, you're having to claim the interest every year and pay tax on that interest that's earned each year. So another benefit there to the MYGA.
Yeah. Do you see any other scenarios that you run into with that product where somebody sees value in something different?
MYGAs have their place. It's really about building the plan and how they can fit into that plan. If somebody comes to us and they're just basically a very conservative investor, they don't want to take any risk, they just want predictable returns. That's where the MYGA really has its place. There are other alternatives and where you can get creative and position a MYGA. Sometimes what we'll find is, like you said, somebody's maybe 5 years away from retirement and they're not wanting to take the risk of losing any of their nest egg that they've accumulated up to that point. They can put it into a product like a MYGA and get that guaranteed fixed rate for that next 5 years and know that right at that 5-year mark when they're ready to retire, that money was never lost in any way, shape, or form, that it actually grew guaranteed. So it's a good way to eliminate sequence of returns risk in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
But I would only suggest using a MYGA in that scenario to eliminate sequence of returns if they already have their income plan solidified. So oftentimes those people already have a pension and Social Security that they can count on. But if they don't have a pension, which less than 14% of all private sector employees today have a pension, only 14% have one today in today's day and age, then a MYGA probably wouldn't be the right fit. It would be something more along the lines of guaranteed income that they can use with their Social Security. But MYGAs have their place. A lot of times, elderly people. I've had plenty of clients over the years that are 75, 80, 85 years old, and they're just wanting to grow their money safely so that they can leave a legacy. And at that point in the game, right, they don't know how many years they have left. So they just want to predictably grow it at a guaranteed rate, not take any risk, and then pass it on to their heirs. So that's where a MYGA, I think, has a really good fit in that type of planning scenario.
Yeah. I've got a gentleman I'm working with right now. He's 86 and doing exactly that. Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty common, and I think it's a smart plan. The other thing it does when you're looking at locking it in for a 5-year, or you can get them as high as 20 years. A lot of people don't know that, but there are a couple MYGAs out there that have a 20-year guarantee period. But the common range is 3 to 7 years. But if you can lock in that gain every year guaranteed, the other thing that it helps you do is it eliminates the interest rate risk that a lot of people are opposed to in retirement. Interest rate risk is the volatility of interest rates as you move to and through retirement. And being able to lock in a high rate now, which a lot of people would agree today that we're in a historically higher interest rate environment, you can lock in that high rate for 5, 10, or 20 years and know that your money's going to earn a fair rate of return with no risk. A lot of times when we work with clients that are interested in MYGAs, one of the things that I think uncover is that they're not oftentimes thinking about a longer term. They're usually thinking of a 3-year, maybe 5-year at most.
Yep.
And I always ask them, why 3 years? Why 5 years? Where did you come up with these numbers and these terms? And oftentimes they say, well, if the interest rates change, I want to be able to take advantage of that. And I fully understand that. That makes sense. But you also have to kind of look at the cyclical environment of interest rates and look at how it flows, right? If you look at it, it looks like a tide chart. And, I'm a fisherman. So, tide going in and going out type of thing. And when you're in a high interest rate environment, it's smart to lock that high interest rate in for as long as you can in most cases, or at least longer than shorter, because chances are the probability of that bell curve is going to start going down and the interest rates are going to go down. So for example, if you go into a 3-year MYGA or a bank CD or whatever it might be, you get to that 3-year mark and maybe you had 5% for 3 years guaranteed, but then you for renewal and you get the letter from the bank or the insurance company, in this case with a MYGA, and the renewal rate's 2%.
Right.
Well, if you average the 5% and the 2% over a 6-year window, you're not getting 5 anymore. You're getting a lot less.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it's a good thing for people to play the interest rate game. I think it's good to just take what you can get in a high interest rate environment and lock that in for a longer duration of time. And I would bet in most cases, your outcomes are going to be far greater than if you tried to play the game, the interest rate game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we get that question too, where, well, how long should I have this in here? And should I do 5 years? Should I do 10 years? Well, it's all based on that person's plan. And granted, we all know it, the Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. But if we have a plan in place, then we can follow it and go that way. My advice of you doing 3 years versus 5 years isn't going to change. It's relative to what you think your life is going to be like. And I can't answer that one.
For sure. Yeah. And that's a good point, and that's where you kind of want to evaluate what are the goals now and later. What is the goal? What are the goals in the near term and the long term? And what is the consumer? What does our client want the outcomes to look and feel like? Yeah. And oftentimes people are just, they're worried about making longer term commitments. But when you can explain to them that, hey, this is how here's how you want to look at this and this decision, ultimately you have to do what's most comfortable. But I also found that when we start to really educate people and lift their annuity IQ to a higher level than where they started, they can start to look at things and these types of decisions with a different lens and make a better decision. That's ultimately our goal as advisors, is to do what's in the best interest of the client. It starts with their comfort. It starts with, learning about what their goals are and then helping them mesh those two together, their goals and what's most comfortable. And we do that through education and transparency. And I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, if you want to cover,
so we talked about MYGAs. We talked about MYGAs. We've got 3 more types of annuities. What do you got for us, Zach?
Yeah. So variable annuity. I'll let you hit on variable annuity.
Well, variable annuities, and just to be fully transparent, as an independent annuity advisory firm, we're not advocates for variable annuities in most cases. We do see where they can be a fit at times, and most of the time it's on the guaranteed income side. Occasionally you can find a variable annuity that has a very competitive guaranteed lifetime income offer. But for most of the clients that choose to work with us, they're nearing retirement. They've recently retired, or they might even be longer in the tooth of retirement. But one thing that they all have in common is that they're very conservative, or at least moderately conservative, and they understand the importance of the preservation of their capital, and that they also understand that in this new phase of life called retirement, that they're transitioning from accumulation and they're transitioning to preservation. And a variable annuity, the key word being variable, that means that there's a level of assumed risk inside that product. And a variable annuity is going to have 2 elements of the product, where you can have growth according to the markets, and then you can add optional guarantees on income and other things. But the main thing with variable is that your monies are actually directly invested in the markets. Generally, most variable annuities leverage mutual funds inside the contract. So you're basically buying mutual funds inside of an annuity contract. And with mutual funds, you have exposure to market risk. So while you can earn a fair rate of return in those products, you also can assume some loss, and sometimes it can be a hefty loss. And so with that being said, most of the clients that choose to work with us, they understand that, they're really wanting to preserve their capital and build a plan that gives them peace of mind that they're not going to lose what they have, but also that they want to be able to leverage what they have and build in some strong, solid guarantees in the planning process of annuities, and help them get to and through retirement with a lot of peace of mind and confidence. Variable annuities are also, in my opinion, the main annuity responsible for the misconceptions or negative connotations around the word annuity. A lot of people don't realize that there's different types of annuities. There's actually a ton of different annuities out there. A variable annuity, I believe, is responsible for all of the negative things that you hear. One of the biggest negative perceptions of annuities is that they're highly feed. And in a variable annuity, that can oftentimes be true. What we found in analyzing variable annuity contracts is that there can be anywhere from 5 to 8 different fees built into these contracts. Everything from rider fees to mortality and expense fees, load fees from the mutual funds, annual fees from the mutual funds and the management of them. So because of that, we also find that the average fee in a variable annuity can be anywhere from 2.5% to as high as 5% a year. And that's no bueno. That's not good. The last thing that you need in your retirement plan are unnecessary and hefty fees, weighing and dragging down your overall, accumulation or retirement account. So because of those reasons, we're not advocates for variable annuities. To be honest with you, we won't even offer them to our clients. We do have advisors that have licenses to offer those, but it's very one-off where we find a variable annuity is a better deal for somebody than other types of annuities that we offer.